As gay men, we often find social situations that can be uncomfortable, whether it's you're in a situation where you're thinking, do I need to come out again this week in this situation?
Yeah, totally.
Do I need to disguise myself for some reason because of a work or, fear of prejudice, fear of a bad reaction? I think we're very attuned to that as gay men. We're very attuned to reading social situations and working out how we can feel safe in them. I think this is a space where we don't have to worry about any of that. All we have to be concerned about is how am I going to get the most out of this that I can? And my role is to help facilitate that, to encourage people to be as brave as they can be, but not to make them uncomfortable or not to make them feel they're being pressured into anything.
You're listening to Queer Travel Chat by Two Bad Tourists. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Queer Travel Chat. I'm Austin, one half of the blogger duo Two Bad Tourists, and as always, joining me here in Madrid is David. It's the Jurassic. If you're not watching on video, David's wearing his favorite.
Sporting my favorite Park hoodie, my Jurassic Park hoodie. Yes, I am here too. Welcome to the podcast. So before we get into our whole topic for today, Austin, what do you got travel plan wise? What's coming up?
So my next trip coming up is Berlin in March. It's not a vacation per se. It's actually a work trip. So I will be there for ITB Berlin, which is a big travel trade show. So it's where we make lots of connections, meet different people who are interested.
Are you taking our sales manager, Dan, instead of me?
I am.
Am I being replaced?
No.
Am I losing my job?
You are not.
Is he going to be hosting next week's episode of Queer Travel Chat?
He might just be. Maybe season 6. Better watch your back.
God damn it.
What about you? What's up? What are you doing?
I am trying to plan a trip to go snowboarding in Granada in the Sierra Nevada because it's been quite a few years since we've been snowboarding. I am teaching my boyfriend how to do it. So there's a small, tiny, crappy mountain here in Madrid, Valdesky, where you can.
Sounds great.
Where you can go.
Way to sell it.
So we're just going to go this weekend so he can practice so that we can make the most of actually paying on a trip and going to a nicer mountain. So I'm still in the works of getting that going, but I want to do a fun winter trip before.
And I might actually join you. You're trying to talk me into it.
Yeah, it'll be cheaper if we split the hotel. So anyway, let's get into today's episode. We're going to talk to writer, journalist, and organizer Paul Burston about getting together and creating meaningful connections, especially while traveling. So we'll specifically discuss the upcoming Lisbon Salon, unpack what salons are, who they're for, and why this format resonates so well in today's world. Glainne is also the sponsor of today's episode. These salons can be found on Glainne.com. That's spelled Glainne.
All right, so let's get into your fun facts as always, right?
Oh yeah, my fun facts. You can take it up.
All right, I'm going to start.
Get us started, yeah.
Okay, so since we're talking about Lisbon, our fun facts are Lisbon-based. So Lisbon was destroyed in an earthquake.
It's not even there anymore.
Yeah,
you can't even
totally
go.
No, so this was actually in 1755. So this earthquake is often referred to as the Great Lisbon Earthquake, and it devastated the city, triggering a series of fires and actually a massive tsunami. The commercial hub was utterly destroyed, and the Royal Ribeira Palace, along with many nearby monuments, suffered extensive damage.
We've been to Lisbon. Did you know that? I mean, I'm sure we learned it on a tour, but I don't remember hearing about that.
It went in 1 ear and out the other.
We haven't even started drinking wine yet.
Speak for yourself.
Continuing on, the history of Lisbon dates back more than 3,000 years, making it one of the oldest cities in Western Europe, even predating other ancient metropolises like Rome and London. It is the second oldest capital city in Europe after Athens.
According to the Guinness Book of World Records, now let me see if I can pronounce this, the Livraria Bertrand has the proud distinction of being the world's oldest bookstore, and it's located in Lisbon, having opened its doors in 1732.
And we've also been there.
We have.
Too,
it's gorgeous.
Right? Yeah, it's a really cool spot to go see. Well, I mentioned that Lisbon is the second oldest capital in Europe, but technically Portugal does not have a single modern constitutional clause that explicitly says Lisbon is the capital, leading some to say it's the unofficial capital. Essentially, in 1255, Alonso III declared that Lisbon would become the country's capital, and it has remained so until today. Of course, there can be little doubt that the city is the capital. Just don't ask for any proof.
So Lisbon is actually, I'm making this one up. Well, I'm not making it
what?
up. I just
researched this.
I know it. Lisbon is known as the city of seven hills. And I'm
Oh,
saying
no,
this
that's true,
because
yeah.
there are trams that take you up around the city and up the hills. And so actually these early Lisbon trams were influenced by American streetcar technology in the late 19th century. So one of the most famous attractions, of course, in Lisbon are these yellow trams that can take you to various parts of the city, either up the hill or down or all around. And they were historically named Americanos in Portugal. They were locally adapted vehicles that were designed to handle Lisbon's steep hills and tight streets, and they were inspired by American systems.
Do you think that Donald Trump is going to use that as an excuse to take over, to like annex Portugal next after we take over Greenland?
Yeah, that's next on the list.
Like, those were our trams. It's our country. Anyway, Portugal, last but not least, Portugal's famous tarts originated in Lisbon. You might be familiar with Portuguese custard tarts that are called pastel de nata. They are absolutely delicious.
When they're served hot and fresh, ooh,
yeah.
yummy, yummy.
The last time that I was there, wherever we were like staying above a little shop that sold the pastel de nata, and they were having like a little glass of port with it every morning. I was like,
good.
Do as they do. And that's how I started every morning when I was in Porto, which was great. But we're talking about Lisbon. Anyway, the Casa Pastéis de Belém is where they were first made in 1837 based on a recipe from Hieronymus Monastery, and they continue to make them fresh every day.
As always, we thank David for his lovely fun facts.
And the internet and Google and ChatGPT. Thank you.
So as always, if you like the show, please subscribe to it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Please also be sure to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy our episodes. We would greatly appreciate that. Plus, if you're watching live on any social media platform, feel free to leave us a comment or share the episode with your friends. And you can follow us on social media. We're always at Two Bad Tourists. We are actually going to be interviewing Paul for the episode on Glainne, talking about the Lisbon Salon. So Paul, please join us and come to the episode. Paul, do you want to join us?
I do. Hi there.
Hello.
Hi,
Welcome
Paul.
to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Where are we talking to you from? Well, no, I always
I'm
do
in
that wrong.
Hastings.
We're talking to you from Madrid. Where are you talking to us from?
I'm in Hastings on the south coast of England,
Okay.
where the Battle of Hastings took place. Yeah.
Got it.
Are you from
1066 and all that. No, I was raised in South Wales, and then, like nearly every gay man of my generation, moved to London and met most of my life living in London. And I've moved down here the last couple of years. I prefer the pace here than London. London's a bit too much for me these days.
It's like chaotic, right?
Unless it's work.
Yeah, and expensive.
Yeah, very expensive. Very
Yeah.
expensive.
Well,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, a little bit about your background.
Well, as I say, I grew up in South Wales. I left to go to college to study English and drama. I left college at the age of 22 and tried to get involved in the theatre a little bit, and then got bored of that, really. And also around that time, friends began getting ill with HIV/AIDS. And so I became an AIDS activist. And so that was the kind of turning point in my life, really. And from then I became a journalist because I wanted to sort of own the narrative and take control of the stories, because the reporting on ACTA in this country was appalling. It was never the truth. It was always a spin. So I got involved in ACTA, the AIDS activist group, when I was 23, and was involved in that for 2-3 years. And over that time, the reporting on our actions was always so biased and prejudicial. And so I became a journalist because I wanted to tell the stories myself and own the narrative, as it were. So that sort of activism led me to journalism. And then I kind of rediscovered my love of writing, which I'd always been, very keen on since I was very young, and became a journalist and then became an author. So since 1989 and the early 90s, I've been doing both. And then in 2007, I started this literary salon, Polari, which is for LGBTQ plus writers, poets, spoken word performers. And again, it was kind of an activist move, really, because I was so frustrated that there were so few opportunities to promote books if you were queer, because they'd have one token person on the bill at any book festival. And it was things have changed a lot, I think, over the last 20 years. But back in the early noughties, it was quite difficult to get a space for myself as a writer. So I created this salon, and it just grew and grew. And now we tour all over the country. We've toured abroad as well. And we run a book prize called the Polari Book Prize, which is for books that explore LGBTQ plus themes and characters. So I kind of juggle all of those things.
Yeah, it sounds like, you've had a lot of different roles over your career. Like I heard writer, journalist, editor, organizer, activist. Like, do any of those feel more relevant to you, like right now? And what year are we? 2020 or 2026?
I think there's a common thread, which is about communication. It's about delivering a message, telling a story, sharing experiences. I think as a writer, you put words out into the ether or into print, and people read them often on their own, one-to-one, and that's great. Obviously, it's really, really great. But I like the fact that at Polari you can have an audience interacting with authors and poets, and there's a conversation that isn't just about the sharing of the work. So my most recent book is a memoir that came out a couple of years ago called We Can Be Heroes, and I talk in there a lot about my journey from I had a very troubled childhood to being an activist, to doing the things I do. And one of the nicest things about the book tour wasn't the reading and the sharing, it was the conversations afterwards with people, because people identified with things. And so I think that's the common thread, really, is creating spaces for communication.
Yeah, it must be gratifying too to hear other people's perspectives. Well, let's get a little bit into Glainne. So you're one of the lead voices for Glainne. How did you first encounter the project, and what about it resonated with you?
Well, Jeff contacted me last year and we talked for hours on the phone. And I just felt that we were on the same wavelength, and that what he's interested in is about finding other spaces and other ways for gay men to communicate with each other. I told him a story about when Polari was in Manchester a couple of years ago, and there was a young gay lad came along who was in his early mid-20s, and he'd never been to a gay space that wasn't about cruising and partying before. And it blew his mind that there was people having conversations about literature and art and politics and all these different things. I've nothing against partying. I'm a party animal myself, but I just think there are times when we need spaces that are given over to other kinds of connections. And I think that's what Jeff's aiming for with Glainne, which is something that I feel is much needed these days. I think, if you look back over the history of, certainly in the UK, many of our queer spaces were very temporary and they disappeared very quickly. Right now, we're losing commercial spaces at a huge rate. I used to be the gay editor at Time Out magazine, which is the London listings magazine. Back in the early 90s, I began. And I was there for 20 years. And by the time I left, the number of venues was dramatically fewer than it had been when I started in the 90s. So I think those spaces, we're losing them. And I think we still need other ways to communicate. And while social media is really helpful in lots of ways, I think also people can also end up feeling quite alone and isolated. And I think having a space where people can meet in person with others of like mind and explore ideas and explore ways of communicating, I think that's really beneficial to us as queer people and as a community.
Yeah, I mean, I think Austin and I can relate to that a lot because we met at university in an all-gay fraternity. And it was, for me, the first time I met a group of gay people where I'm like, oh, it isn't all about going to the parties. Like, I too like to go to a party. It's a fun time. But I was like, oh, we can, connect on
space for
other topics.
Different topics. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, years ago, when I was at Time Out, we used to have listings of bars and clubs. And then we'd also have listings of events and meetings. And there would be, social groups for gay men of color, social groups for bisexual men, social groups for different demographics. And a lot of that's been lost now because a lot of the funding for those projects has been taken away. And I think when I talk to gay men who are sort of a third of my age or half my age, they often talk about feeling isolated and lonely. And I think you're living in Manchester, in the heart of the gay village in Manchester, and you're lonely. That tells me something, that you're not getting what you need just from that one outlet. So we need others.
Well, you've definitely set kind of the tone for what we're talking about. You've given us our background, but for listeners who are just hearing about Glainne for the first time, like, how would you describe the product, the experience?
Well, the salon that we're doing in Lisbon is a sort of a conversation and a space for cultural exchange, and the city is part of that project. So we'll be interacting with the city as well as with each other. And I think because it's a smaller event than the other event we're planning for next year at Andalusia, I think making it smaller and allowing participants to interact during that long weekend, hopefully there'll be guided discussions. My role as a kind of facilitator is to kind of encourage those conversations. I think as a writer, I'm very interested in story, and we all tell stories about ourselves to ourselves and to other people. And I think when people share their stories, you often find there are commonalities, whether it's the coming out story, whatever the story is, there are often commonalities, or whether it's about being older and lonelier, you know. I know a lot of gay men my age who are very isolated socially these days. I think providing a space for people to communicate and share experiences and share connections and their desire and need for connections in a space that isn't challenging them to live up to a certain stereotype or a certain expectation that they may find if they were on a dating app, for example. You know, I think the expectations are very different. So I think having a space where people can connect without that pressure is a very helpful and useful one for people, especially people who maybe are feeling somehow disconnected or somehow, you know, looking for meaning. And I think that's a journey that all of us are on in one way or another. So it's certainly true of me. I've been on many different journeys in my life, and the one I'm on now is very much about finding meaning in the smaller things. My ambition that drove me when I was younger isn't the same anymore. I've got a very different take on life, and I'm looking for something that's more rewarding in an enriching emotional way, rather than in a kind of, oh, I've achieved this, I've got this, I've won that, I've got this prize, blah, blah. That side of me it's still there, but it's much quieter these days than it used to be.
It'll never go away.
Yeah.
Well, this salon is happening in Lisbon, November of 2026. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what's going to go on? Because I do feel like it's a new concept for listeners, exactly what it is. I think you've explained well the purpose of it, but what can they expect? What will go on kind of from day to day?
There'll be conversations that will be, there's myself, there's another writer called Paul McVeigh, who was won the prize that I ran a few years back. And he's also very good at running sort of storytelling workshops. So we're going to be encouraging people to sort of share their stories. Because it's a smaller event, it's going to be much more reactive to what actually happens. So I can't tell you in advance what every portion of the event will look like, because there'll be a sort of starting point, a kind of this is your opening line, and then see where people take it. Then we'll follow along where they lead us. But really, our role is to ensure that people are sharing and conversing and sharing their stories. I think there are other people as well involved, other facilitators, who'll be bringing this a wonderful singer called David McAlmont, who is a huge talent and a wonderful man. And he's very good at encouraging people to open up and be expressive. And you know, whenever you get a group of people together, you always have to be aware that there will be some people who are more comfortable talking and others who are more comfortable listening. And that's fine, so long as the people that are listening also do a bit of talking at some point. So it's about creating a space where they feel safe to do that. But my role really is to kind of respond to the needs of the group. So we'll start off with some set ideas and some set exercises, starting points, conversation starters to get people going. But once they get going, our job, I think, is to follow where they want to go, or bearing in mind what the aim of the event is, which is about communication and sharing.
Yeah, right. Connection.
So I feel pretty clear on like the communication and the sharing and the objectives. Like, what can, you know, as this is a travel podcast, like people would be, I guess, traveling to Lisbon. Like, where are they staying? Like, are they having group meals together? Like, can you talk a little bit about that structure?
Well, Jeff is organizing all of that, so I'm not really involved in that side of things so much. But as I understand it, there will be meals, there will be journeys to and from the space where the main event is happening, to restaurants, to bars, where along the way the kind of conversation continues as well in between venues. But it is very much a cultural exchange as well. So it is very much bringing in what Lisbon has to offer into the story. It's not just about being in a locked room talking to each other for three solid days. Okay. Lovely as that would be, it's very much an interactive. It's very much interacting with what Lisbon has to offer. I've never been to Lisbon before, so I'm really excited about going to Lisbon. Paul McVeigh, who's the other writing facilitator, it's his favourite place on earth, so he's really excited to be going back.
It's lovely. It's beautiful.
Well, so you have these, some structure that's going to be provided, but how do you provide that structure without being overly rigid? Is there room for spontaneity? Is there going to be room for some flexibility?
Yes, absolutely. I see it as my job is to kind of light the spark and see what happens, and then follow the direction that people take. Even when you run a writing workshop, which is very different to this, but when you run a writing workshop, you never know quite what people are going to produce in that workshop. You never know. You might ask them to write a story about the first time they came out, or the first time they went to the movies, or something really simple, but you never know where that's going to lead them emotionally. So the job really is to kind of be intuitive and to respond to people. And if somebody is sharing something that feels, well, this is quite a big deal for them, they've never really talked about this with other people before, with strangers before, you need to be sensitive and responsive to that. You can't just say, well, that's the end of that exercise, let's move on. You have to kind of give them some time and some space and some consideration, and to keep that conversation going. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a really interesting challenge, because I like to think that I'm quite intuitive, but we'll see. You know, I think it depends what happens. It depends what people are bringing to the table. But I think so long as we're open to being flexible and not being rigid in our approach, I think being rigid in your approach on something like this, it would be a disaster. I think what you need is, all you're creating is a framework. You're not creating the whole picture. The people who are involved are the people colouring in all the bits and creating the picture. We're just creating the framework and giving them the frame and saying, here's some paint there. Or here's a story, write this story, and then see where that connects. But it isn't about telling them what the result is, because the result will depend on the people. They're completing the story.
It sounds like you're well suited for this.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask a question, which you mentioned you've not been to Lisbon, so maybe this is going to be more of a kind of a dialogue between the three of us. But like, why Lisbon in particular? Like, why do you think this is a good destination for LGBTQ plus travelers? Of course, I know you've not been there. So
what I understand about Lisbon is that it's intimate, despite being a capital city. It's got historical layers. It's creatively vibrant, connected to ideas around exploration. So I think it's a setting that will, I mean, a city like London it isn't really a city. It's a series of villages and towns connected by a tube network, you know. My understanding of Lisbon is that it's drastically different to that. And I think that lends itself more to this kind of event.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we've been to Lisbon quite a few times, and I think what you say is accurate. Like, it is a capital city, but it's compact, it's small, it's quite walkable, and yeah, the history and culture is phenomenal. And it's also actually, just talking about Europe overall, it's quite progressive. You know, it's a place that LGBTQ plus people can be and can kind of be open. So I would agree with all that.
You'll also be participating in the Andalusia residency, right, in January 2027.
That's right.
What's the difference exactly between the salon and a residency?
Well, the residency is a closed space. We're all in that castle hotel for the duration. It's not interacting with like we are with Lisbon, where Lisbon is part of the story. And because it's over a longer period, I think there's more opportunities to go deeper. So I think the conversations will go deeper, and they'll be what tends to happen in my experience is that the first session, you'll get to a certain level. The second session, you'll get to another level. You can only achieve so much doing that. But when you've got a longer period to work on something like this, you can go in many more different directions. So I think having a residency will enable us to go deeper, and I think people will find that very rewarding. Also, there is. I mean, not that I think people will feel pressure, but I think if you've got a shorter time frame for an event, the expectation is bound to be different, because you're not going to have the time to go through everything. So I think that the longer event, the residency, will be an opportunity to go deeper than we can go on the weekend.
Yeah, it takes time. It takes some time for people to open up a little bit, right? They're not going to do it right away. They need to get to know each other a little bit first, and then feel a little bit more comfortable.
I think so. There's always the people that go in and they're straight on. You know, they're fully on from the minute they arrive, whether it's socially or in a situation like this. And there's others that need a bit of time to warm up. So I think the residency will probably facilitate for those people more, because they'll have a longer time to get into the kind of the movement of it and the sort of pacing of it and the mood.
So taking it back to the Lisbon Salon, which of course is coming up in November, it's a few days long. Like, what would you say excites you most about the idea of living, eating, and kind of reflecting together in this group over those several days?
Well, for me, I love meeting new people. I love having an excuse to communicate and share stories with people. I'm nosy. I'm a writer. I'm always eavesdropping on people's conversations. Um, I think having a time dedicated to that kind of communication, for me, that's just my ideal way to spend time. Whether it's, you know, whether it's sharing, whether it's going to see something, whether, if you go to the theatre or the movies, or the best part for me is the conversation afterwards. I love sort of analysing what we've just seen and what we've just witnessed. So I think for me, it's going to be about connection and what kind of conversations can we have? What kind of realizations can people come to about themselves and about what they're looking for in life, what they're missing, what they're discovering? It's a kind of journey of discovery in many ways, I think. And well, I mean, life is, isn't it, at the end of the day? But I think sometimes we can kind of get into sort of systems whereby we just end up repeating patterns and not really looking at what we're doing and not being mindful of what we're doing. We just sort of do things out of habit. And I think having a space to kind of stop and reflect and ask questions is a great way of being more clear about clear-minded about what we want from life and what we're looking for and what we're missing and how we might find it or fix it or make things better for ourselves. And I think all of us can benefit from that.
I have to admit that, like, before we started this podcast, I wasn't quite sure like what exactly these salons and residencies were, and I feel like it's actually been a super helpful conversation to like talk with you, because it is such a unique and different product than what exists in the market. I feel like I kind of needed to have this 20-minute chat to like understand, what's the structure, who's kind of going, why people would go. So I feel like I'm finally starting to understand like the concept, and hopefully our listeners are understanding that as well.
Imagine that for our listeners, some of them are curious and interested in going to the Lisbon Salon or the Andalusia residency, but maybe they're worried about feeling a little bit uncomfortable because they've never done something like that before. What would you say to them?
If they've ever got into a social situation where they're uncomfortable, which I'm sure they will have done if they're people who feel trepidatious about this, just think of it as a social situation where there's somebody there to look out for you. There's someone there looking out for you and helping you along the way. It's like a guided event.
So it's not supposed to be scary, where you're vulnerable, but then you don't have anyone to kind of help support you.
Exactly. It's you've got people there to support. You've got people there to look out for you, make sure that you get what you want from the experience, encourage you to be as brave as you can, but also respect your boundaries and accept that some people will be less comfortable sharing certain things than others, and that's fine. Our job as facilitators is to make sure that we facilitate those conversations, not to force them on anybody. It's to encourage people, but to respect their own boundaries and their own limitations. I think, as gay men, we often find social situations that can be uncomfortable, whether it's you're in a situation where you're thinking, do I need to come out again this week in this situation? Yeah, totally. Do I need to disguise myself for some reason because of a work or, fear of prejudice, fear of a bad reaction? I think we're very attuned to that as gay men. We're very attuned to reading social situations and working out how we can feel safe in them. I think this is a space where we don't have to worry about any of that. All we have to be concerned about is, how am I going to get the most out of this that I can? And my role is to help facilitate that, to encourage people to be as brave as they can be, but not to make them uncomfortable or not to make them feel they're being pressured into anything, but to encourage them to open up and to share and to connect with their fellow men.
So they can know that Paul's going to be there to look out for them.
I'll be holding their hands.
More or less, I mean, I know it's still a ways out, but what is the expected group size or the ideal group size?
I think it's about 25 for this.
Oh, that's okay. Actually,
I think it's quite a small group. I think Jeff said maybe up to 30, but as opposed to compared to the residency, I think the strength of this is that it's smaller and more intimate.
Yeah, I think 25 is good.
That makes sense.
Cap it there.
Okay, so the concept, it's become clear. I understand the objective, connection. Like, is there any other question that you wish we would have asked you, or maybe something kind of final thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
I think we live in an age at the moment where there is so much communication. You know, there are so many ways to communicate. We're on little devices all the time. We're connecting. We're looking at photographs. We're looking at videos, and admiring strangers on the internet, and that's all fine. But I think oftentimes we can have that feeling of connection while also feeling completely disconnected, feeling very isolated, feeling very alone. And I think anything which helps to address that and provides people with a space in which to be very present in a real way, not just hiding behind a screen, but be present and be connecting with other people, and without the pressure of a party atmosphere or anything like that. I think I personally have benefited hugely from being in these kinds of environments. Even in my younger days, I found these environments much easier to navigate than the kind of the commercial scene. Much as I love being out partying and going to bars and clubs, I often found that I'd wake up the next day and feel like I hadn't really connected with anybody in a meaningful way. Whereas attending workshops or attending, some social groups, discussion groups, we used to have a lot of those in London when I was younger, whether it was about books or just general discussion. Then I found much more connection there, in the same way that I did through activism in ACTA, because there was a shared purpose.
Sure.
So I think if people have a shared purpose and a sense that they want to make a meaningful connection, they've all come together for that one reason, then that to me is going to be rewarding for everyone, including myself as a participant as well as a facilitator.
Well said. Very well said. This is a travel podcast, so we always like to wrap up with our final question being, where are you traveling to next?
Well, at the moment I'm traveling around the UK because I'm touring with the salon, so I'm going all over the UK at the moment.
Cool.
But my next, so we're going to Edinburgh and Manchester and Exeter and Brighton and all over the place. There's like 30 destinations this year, which is crazy.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're on tour.
You're going to be on the road for a while.
Yeah, people can find us at polarisalon.com and all the dates up on there. But in terms of sort of holiday travel, my next trip will be to Sitges in probably May.
We've heard
one of my favorites. One of my absolute favorites.
I love Sitges. I've been to Sitges so many times. I've got friends who live there, so I've got people I can go and stay with, and it's a great city. It's a great town, and what I love about Sitges is that the first time I went there, previously I'd been to kind of, if you live in the UK, then in the winter time people tend to go to the Canary Islands because that's where it's hot. And much as I love the Canaries, the scene is very sort of overwhelming in Gran Canaria. It's very, very full on. What I love about Sitges is that you've got the scene existing, sort of cohabiting with this kind of cute little town,
right.
And it doesn't feel that there's just one purpose for being there. It's very integrated.
Yeah,
and I love this culture. I love the feeling, the way the people are. I think Spanish people are fantastic, and I love the spirit of the place. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. The fireworks, not so much, because they're health and safety issues to do with their love of fireworks. The last time I was there, I got covered in there was some festival going on, and they were carrying this huge iron dragon through the town that was spitting fire and fireworks. And there were people holding up their children and their pets.
Safety issues, need some help, but it's all part of the fun. You survived. You should tell the story.
I did have a lot of burns on my clothes.
Oh my gosh.
We'll be there, I think, in May.
We have a group for
Sitges, so try to go every year.
May is when I'm planning to go, so I may see you there.
All right, we'll say hello. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for taking the time to tell us all about Glainne and about the salons and the residency. We will put all the links so people can find it easily in our show notes as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you so much.
It was nice chatting.
We'll talk to you later.
Too.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Wow, so what an interesting concept for an experience.
It's a kind of very relevant for today's world, and being super online and all the social media. So I think it's going to be a good experience.
It's very unique. So thanks everyone for listening to our episode as always.
And thank you, Paul, for joining us.
So if you want to learn more about Glainne, you can visit their website, at Glainne.com. That's GLAINNE.com. Of course, we'll link that in the show notes. And the dates for the Lisbon Salon are November 13th through 15th, 2026.
If you like the show, please subscribe to it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Be sure to leave a 5-star review if you enjoy the episodes. If you're watching live on any social media platform, feel free to leave us a comment or share the episode with your friends. Follow us on social media. We are always at Two Bad Tourists. And lastly, feel free to leave us a comment about what you want to hear more of.
And speaking of what they want to hear more of, they're going to want to hear
Freedom
this.
House.
So on our next episode, we are going to be speaking about Freedom House Retreat, which is a nude gay guest house just on the outskirts of San Juan, Puerto Rico.
We're going to Puerto Rico.
Right on the base of the El Yunque rainforest. So it's right at the base of the mountains. It's like 5 minutes from the beach. And of course, you can go and enjoy that destination with some really two cool hosts that we're going to be interviewing.
Yep. So stay tuned for more queer travel chat.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, guys.